And we are live on the PHU Dynasty podcast. What episode is this? This is episode 54. Holy crap, 54. The 2023 playoff primer. I'm here with my co-host, Sean O'Shea. As always, Sean, we have nothing to talk about on this
There's,
podcast today.
you'd think there'd be more news going into the playoffs, but I can't think of a single thing that's happened even today.
Absolutely nothing going on. No trades, no rule changes, no
Well,
deliberation.
there definitely wasn't a rule change.
Technically, there was a rule change. Not a good one. Not a well drawn out one.
Not
But there
according to
was one.
Sleeper.
Sleeper does not like our rule change, apparently. Yeah, plenty to talk about. I guess we could start right there at the top with the rule discussion. Definitely want to apologize to start off the show. It was voted on. It was pretty handedly voted on too. I think it was a 9-1 ratio.
Yeah.
It just wasn't spelled out the way that it should have been. It should have been very concise to the point on when the actual deadline occurs. So obviously in the offseason, we will take care of that. No action as of right now, but things are going to lock directly at the start of Thursday night for this year. But I do feel like, Sean, what you mentioned earlier about that week 14, maybe before the Thursday night games on week 14 does make some sense because things still need to be decided at that point.
Yeah, it seems like everybody feels agreeable to that. I mean, as long as it's consistent moving forward, I think that's the biggest thing, obviously. So whatever it ends up being, as long as we know it and we're all playing by the same rules, not that people. The problem was it was up to people's interpretation, and
Yeah, I don't think anybody was
important.
truly like taking advantage of it,
No, I
but it
don't think
was
so.
it was just the fact that there was no clear direction on what can be done, what can't be done. So, but we'll make it better. We'll figure it out and get it. We'll get it all into a spot. I'm surprised it's taken what is this, a year 11 or 12 to get to this point where people are just finally, hey, I could go ahead and do that. So let's lead that into our trade. I guess the big trade that kind of spurred this discussion.
Mhm.
I'll pull up the screen here so that we can take a look at keep trade cuts values. Let's see, we got share screen. Let's see if that works. All right, so here's the keep trade cut for the trade between the cheese fries and the lion heads. It's probably a little challenging to see. I might try to zoom in a little bit. my 31-year-old eyes. There we go. All right, that should help a little. All right, so obvious right out the gate, Sean. What do you think your initial thoughts on this trade is? Maybe just your initial thoughts when you saw the trade go through.
It's definitely a obvious win now move for Tibbs, without giving up too much draft capital, which I guess is fine. It's a good thing. But you're definitely going all in just to say that you rebuilt in 2 years and won the chip. That's what it feels like to me.
And if
So
and if it works.
you're sacrificing a couple of good young receivers. I think both Downs and Flowers, they both have very wide spectrums, I think, in like the fantasy community as far as like what their outcome could be. I think there's a lot of people that are high on Zay Flowers, a lot of like people have been high on Downs, and for good reason, they're good players. But I think I would be like a smidge lower than keep trade cut on their value. So I think it may be a little closer than what you would think of the trade.
Um, it's funny. I kind of agree with you. I feel like maybe both Downs and Flowers are a little high. And I think keep trade cut generally sides with the hot young talent at the time,
Mhm.
whatever's happening within that 2 to 3 week window.
I vaguely remember us doing a podcast like last year, maybe even before the NFL draft last year, and like T. Higgins was like wide receiver like 6.
Like 7 or something. Yeah, it was
He's,
insane. And then now,
um,
is he even in the top 20 right now?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It'd be tight. I mean, they got Zay Flowers at 16. Is he higher than Zay Flowers?
I, I don't know.
That's
That'd be a
that's a
good
good.
one.
Would you rather?
Yeah, I, especially since he's probably not going to be on the Bengals next year. You don't even know.
No,
So
it does
it
seem
changes so
unlikely.
fast.
It does, but In terms of Downs, Downs is a player that I like. I don't love him because I still see a potential world where Indianapolis finds other receiver talent to maybe put him back into that wide receiver 3 slot role. But that still could be a very voluminous role in general. Um, and he's going to be a fine player. I think he's actually a better player than maybe what people think he is. He's not just the slot guy. He can do a little bit of everything. He's an excellent route runner too. So I still think there's plenty of upside there. I think he's probably worth maybe just a little bit less than his 5,000 value there, maybe like 4,800 or something.
Mhm.
And then Flowers, he's looked great. There's no denying that. He's going to be used there for years to come. So I don't think his value is too far off really either. I think it really comes down to the fact that there, like you said, there was no draft capital traded here. And really, for Tibbs's team, if you look at his roster, um, he's so deep at receiver at this point with good young deep receivers, with London, with Wilson, with JSN. He's got plenty of talent there, and he's going to add more this year as well. So maybe making a move like this to try to give it a real shot this year. He could afford it, basically, is what I'm looking at this as. And then for Vince, obviously, if you look at the value here, he's getting great value. He's clearly, obviously, not even in the playoffs this year, so this is a next year play 100%. And these are players that will contribute to his team next year. And frankly, for Vince, I think his receiving group was getting maybe a little bit old and maybe aging a little bit with Cooper Kupp getting older.
A little long in
Um,
the tooth.
long in the tooth, if you will, exactly. So this is a great move to ensure that you can get some good young players without having your first round pick this year, because I have it. It was a pretty easy way to kind of turn the page and build for next year.
Yeah, he gave up a lot of his receiver depth in that Bijan trade with you early, like before or right before the season started, if I remember.
Yeah, it was Pickens, Addison, and the ghost of Quentin Johnston, and a first round pick. So yes, he did give up a couple of guys worthwhile, that's for sure. So this is kind of a nice, easy way to replace some of that lost depth, perhaps. For Tibbs' side, all right, I'll ask you this question: Does this trade really move the needle for you on him as a real contender this year? Do you really think that adding these players at this time is really going to do enough to maybe get past Dan and then get past the top two of you and James?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, looking at the matchups for the players that are coming into his team, he's got some really good matchups during the playoff weeks, which will help and be a boon to his team. It's tough though. It really just depends. I mean, like I don't know. Me and James' teams have put up so many more points this year. James is in a tough spot at quarterback. So he would be playing James if he wins against Dan.
Mm-hmm.
So playing ahead, thinking ahead. Not to put Dan's team down. He's having a little bit of a tough run with injuries right now, but I mean, it can happen. You get into the playoffs. That's all you need to do. You just got to get there. So he's got as good a chance as anybody. But yeah, I mean, I think James' team is a little vulnerable right now. I mean, he's rallying around Baker Mayfield in the playoffs, so
Yeah, I mean the window for the taking has opened slightly. We'll say that. Like there's now an easier path perhaps to getting past James. One more thing before we kind of move off this trade a little bit here. With Waller and Connor specifically, both those guys like are getting quote long in the tooth, if you will. Do these guys really even have a ton of value next year? I mean, it depends, I guess, on situations who they bring in at those positions. But Waller, I mean, obviously he's been banged up this year, but he really wasn't doing anything before that anyway. I'm not sure um, with Tibbs's team how he fits in really in the next couple of years. So that kind of concerns me. And then with Connor, I feel like the Arizona Cardinals could go in any direction at almost any position at this point. So would
Mhm.
not shock me at all to see them draft a running back or bring one in or something else. And Connor has also been banged up pretty much every single year his entire career at some point. A little scared by that.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many holes on that roster that it's hard to fill it with running back when you do have James Conner, who's familiar with Kyler Murray and the system already. So I think he's got one more year in Arizona that I
I want to
think
look
he
at his
might still
contract
be able to.
situation. I'm curious.
I think he might be a free agent.
Let me take a peek. So I'm going on Spot Rack. Let's see what they got. So he is technically under contract for 2024, but they have an out to cut him this year for, oh boy, they got a lot of dead cap. So 12.25 million in dead cap to cut him this year, only 3 million in dead cap to cut him next year. So there's a chance he sticks around, but the out is basically they could cut him in this offseason and save 3 mil. So that'll be an
I,
interesting one.
yeah, I could see them sticking with him another year. That wouldn't be surprising. Waller is a tough one. He can't stay healthy, so it doesn't even matter like what his status on the team is. Like you just don't even know if you're going to get anything.
And that contract looks horrible right now.
Yeah.
That is not a good one. So they have an out after this year. They could take a $7.8 million cap hit to cut him, but he's under contract till 2026, and his cap hit every year is about 15 million. So that's not looking super great right now.
Yeah, typically, like tight ends will age a little more gracefully than receivers. A la like a Travis Kelsey, Antonio Gates back in the day, stuff like that. But Waller really is more of a field stretcher as at the tight end position. That's how he's kind of played his career.
I mean, it's pretty much a receiver.
Yeah, so it's tough. So you don't. I don't know if, like how much that diminishes. Like he just won't age well compared
Yeah,
to those other guys. Those guys that'll just sit in the zone or be Jimmy Graham and show up in the end zone like somehow every week. So
he's never really been that kind of guy. It's like every one of his touchdowns, I feel like that I've watched over his career have always been like 40 yards or more. I feel like it's just like these
mhm.
long, stretchy plays. Um, I don't know. That's gonna be an interesting one for Tibbs, but um, I don't think he I don't think he's gonna be using him this week. I believe he's still hurt. I'm gonna
He's
pull up
coming.
the
He should
map
be back this week.
with the great Tommy
The
DeVito.
Tommy Cutlets.
Tommy Cutlets is right. What a great name. I
Amazing.
love Tommy DeVito so much.
Did you see his agent on the sideline?
I thought that was Bradley Cooper, like acting or something. He looked so
No,
ridiculous.
dude, they're
Oh
hamming
my
it up
god.
so much. I love it.
Yeah, he's great. Everybody loves him. He's a jerk and everybody loves him, as they say in SpongeBob. All right, so I guess we could move the segue right into cheese fries versus plague. Let's take a peek here. Let me get rid of this screen. Pull up the other screen. Which sleeper? Who knows? Entire screen. How about that? There we go. Much better. Now that's going to be hard to see because I can't increase the size of this, I don't think.
Oh god.
Oh, maybe I can. But Sleeper's UI is so bad that I can only see like 3 players at a time. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, their desktop app needs lots of work, even through all the upgrades they've had. They've pretty much all in on iPhone, and they're like, we don't care about anything else.
Desktop is not what you would call a priority there.
I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed. All right, so right off at the top, you got Prescott versus Josh Allen, both playing each other, which should be kind of a fun game to watch for these two squads. Um, Dak Prescott has been lights out. God, this view is not working for me. Let's go to that one. How about that? Dak is the number 3 quarterback right now. He's got 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. Absolutely disgusting from week 8 on. He has had 4 touchdowns, 3, 4, 2, 4, 3, 2. And really his average feels like it's somewhere around 30 pretty much for the last 8 weeks or so. So he's been red hot. And then, of course, Josh Allen has been a stud all year long. He's the QB1. He is coming off a slower-ish game, but really tore up the Eagles a couple weeks ago for 44 points.
Yeah,
And
everybody
Josh Allen is
did.
Josh Allen, basically. Also, he has 10 rushing touchdowns this year. It's pretty wild.
That's
Career high, and we still have 4 games left, basically, so that's pretty insane.
The guy's really good. He's really
So
good.
what do you think about this quarterback matchup? Do you think maybe Dak slows down playing Buffalo? I mean, their defense hasn't been that great this year. Josh Allen's going against a tougher defense finally here as well.
I will say that Dallas has had a very easy middle schedule against defenses so far. That's kind of where his like hype train started. So Buffalo completely destroyed by injuries like for most of the year, but they still are a solid, well-coached defense. So I don't see a blow-up week from Dak. He could definitely live in that like 20 to 25 range in points, which is still a great week. I think you take that from your quarterback when it's not the strength of your team 10 out of 10 times. But I don't think it's going to be a blow-up week like he's been doing via Philly or whomever else they've played. And then for Josh Allen, Dallas is good. The defense is on the road, a little worse. Anytime they're outside of Dallas, that team is just not the same. So you could see him. Even the Eagles were moving the ball in Dallas on them. They just kept turning the ball over in the red zone.
Yeah, they just love to cough it up.
We really do, and it's just so frustrating.
It's got to be terrible to watch because it's not like the offense is bad. They just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, the only problem is that the Bills are kind of doing the same thing this year. The last few weeks haven't been as bad, but like that
Could be a shit show game.
That London Jacksonville game is just burned into my memory from earlier in the year.
Where that was not good.
They got to the red zone like 3 or 4 times and just dropped the ball. So, but I mean, they have a legitimate chance to still be a playoff team, and every game is just uber important to them now. So they're going to show up. It's going to be a good game.
It is a great game. I really hope the Bills make the playoffs, honestly, because there's so many bad quarterbacks that are out there right now. I want to see Josh Allen in the playoffs. I don't want to see anybody else. I mean, any of these backups, really. I just want to see, quality quarterback play, but I might not get that wish.
If they win out, he should legitimately be the MVP favorite.
I would agree. I mean, geez, the guy is carrying. He's doing everything. He's literally the entire offense. He's
literally carrying the team. Like he's got that turnover every week, but like he's having to compensate for so much that like it's like you can only ask him to do so much before something bad happens.
Yeah, I mean he's basically just the ultimate gunslinger. I mean, it's a matter of time before something happens. But okay, let's.
One more thing. Dallas has also struggled pretty bad with mobile quarterbacks. So something to keep an eye on. So I think rushing yards are going to be a positive for him, which is just a bonus.
I haven't really followed super closely how the Bills' offensive line has played this year, but Dallas's pass rush is definitely scary and could potentially be a bit of an issue. But it also might cause more rushing yards, honestly, because if he's got to scramble more as a result of the pass rush, it could be even more points for Dan. And he's going to need them, segueing into our running back position, because Jerick McKinnon and Keaton Mitchell are the starters heading into the playoffs for the Plague. And it's not good, especially going up against 2 really solid young running backs here, Rachaad White, Jahmyr Gibbs, both of which are playing, unfortunately, cold weather games, it looks like, or maybe not. Detroit's playing inside the Dome in Detroit, not at Denver. So I like both of these running backs, honestly, in this situation. I forgot that there were Saturday night football games, honestly. I thought there was only Sunday night games and Thursdays, but I guess that's starting now.
There's 3 Saturday games.
It's going to be a slow Sunday then. Damn.
Yep.
All right, well, and I think is there 2 Mondays again next week, or no? I hope not.
No, it's just the Eagles and Seahawks because it got flexed.
I really did not like that Monday night game. Those Patriots are so bad. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about them here at some point. But yeah, running back matchup, I don't think it's really close. I mean,
Would you might already know the answer to this being a Bucks fan, but would you like to take a guess at what running back rank Rashad White is on the year?
fantasy wise, right? Like fantasy
Yeah,
points.
yeah, yeah.
He's been pretty damn consistent. I mean, is he? He's got to be top 10, right? Probably. Okay, so I'd put him like 8 then.
He's RB7.
Shit, I was close. That's pretty amazing. I mean,
It's
it doesn't feel like he's done anything. It really,
he's,
like, every
yeah,
time you watch him, it's like, meh.
I think he's like a hair under 3.8 yards per carry this year.
Yeah, he's at 371. So
Yeah.
it's just like, and I was at the Falcons game last week, and frankly, that team, we could not do anything offensively, especially run the ball in the first half. It was disgusting to watch. And then pretty much on that last drive, he ended up churning out like 60 of the 70 yards we needed to go down the field, and scored the touchdown too, on a little screen pass. So, I mean, if you look at these numbers in the last few weeks, he's been really, really good, but he's been good pretty much since week 8 on. I mean, he's had 10, 23, 15, 11, 12, 16, 20. I mean, you can't ask for anything more
Pretty
than
good.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been phenomenal. And even with the lack of efficiency, he has almost 500 yards in the passing game as well. So he's well over 1,100 yards total, and he's got 7 touchdowns. That's pretty great through 13 games. He's doing pretty well. And Tibbs is obviously loving every minute of that. And then Jahmyr Gibbs started off in that middle section of the year, 18, 25, 23, 15. Slowed down a little bit once Montgomery came back, but last week had a pretty efficient game, 1166 and a touchdown. So I feel like it's just a matter of touches for Gibbs, right? It's really just, can the guy get, 15 to 20 touches a game, maybe, depending on game script. But
Yeah, I think it's just been just not getting as many targets out of the backfield the last 2 weeks. 6 targets in the last 2 weeks is not going to get it done for that type of running back. So, because he gets it done on the ground, he's very efficient, but like he's with not being the goal line
5.41
back,
yards a carry.
not being a goal line back, you're going to have to do more in the receiving game, and he just hasn't been doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they've targeted him 60 times almost on the year, but in the last couple of weeks, I think he's got 8 targets in the last 3 games. So it's just not enough. But and it's interesting too, because they've been in game scripts that you would think would provide more receiving for him, but it just really hasn't
Mm-hmm.
worked out that way. So maybe he'll turn it around here in a home game against Denver. They've been on the road the last 2 weeks, so maybe something changes there. But it feels like a very winnable game for the Lions. So we'll have to
Jared
see.
Goff in the dome is a different guy.
He loves the dome, the Georgia
He's a-
Dome. All right, so let's move forward to McKinnon and Mitchell. Um, I'm
I
not
mean,
super excited about either one, to be honest with you.
McKinnon got the I think almost all of the snaps when they were in the red zone last week, and he's another week removed from an injury. So those are your pros. Your cons are that it's Jerick McKinnon. So
But Jerick McKinnon was a playoff legend for Scavelli last year.
he
So you
was.
never know. This is his prime time. I mean, if it's ever going to happen, it's right now. He gets a really crappy New England team on the road. Feels like a game that they could potentially be running the ball more.
That defense is still top 5.
Yeah, they always are. They're always a good defense, but it's just that offense
Yeah.
is so bad.
You might be getting a pissed off Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Who knows? They could just throw down like 50 on them just out of spite.
Yeah, they could just be really, really upset and want to stick it to somebody, and they're just the next person in line. For McKinnon, it hasn't really played a whole lot this year. Last week, he did have 45% of the snaps, which was his season high. So, I mean, if he can get 50% of the snaps, sneak in with 8 points, something like that, I'm sure Dan will be very happy with that, which seems kind of low in a playoff game, but that's kind of what we're up against here with some injuries. And then Keaton Mitchell, speaking of not a whole lot of touches, Keaton Mitchell is the king of doing basically, well, actually, him and Jaylen Warren, I would say, are probably the king of doing nothing or doing something with the little bit amount of carries they get. He pretty much gets 9 carries a week based on this look. He's pretty much always getting 9 carries. And his average per carry is 8.5 this year, which is absurd. So
Yeah,
I
I
feel like they
mean,
should give him the ball more.
you're really just hoping for him to break off like a 50, 60-yard touchdown. I think that's the dream of starting Keaton Mitchell. I think
And he's done it.
he's done it. That's why he's averaging 8 yards a carry.
It's pretty amazing. He's a guy I like coming into the draft process, but the whole fact of him going undrafted and I didn't keep him around long enough to see the fruits of his talent. But he's a guy that he'll be around and he'll make some plays every here and there. But I'd
Yeah,
like to see him get a few more touches.
he's like Devon Achane with bad marketing. He feels like
Poor man's Devon Achane.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. He's very fast. He's really fast. You watch him on tape, it's like, oh my god, this guy's double the speed as everybody else. All right, let's go to the receivers. It's a little bit more fun to look at. So a little bit of a new look here. You got Debo, DJ Moore, and Michael Pittman. We'll start at the top with Debo. He's been on fire, if you might say that, in the last few weeks. Absolutely tore up
Yeah, I'd
Philly.
say so.
Absolutely tore up Philly for 32.8, and then had another huge week last week against Seattle, 28 points. The guy really has not been able to been stopped in the last couple weeks.
Been the wide receiver 9, 1, and 1 the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's insanity. Insanity. And you have to imagine he stays hot against a really bad Arizona team. It could be a bad game script though. You never know, but they seem to air it out pretty much all the time anyway. It doesn't really matter too much for them.
Eric, would you like to a quick quiz for you? Who has more touchdowns, rushing touchdowns on the season?
Rushing touchdowns.
Debo Samuel or Saquon Barkley and Javonte Williams combined?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Saquon has 2. So I guess this sounds like a Debo question. Oh, he has 3 now?
He scored 2. Well, was one receiving on Monday night?
It might have been receiving. It was only his second touchdown, I think, at some like
Yeah,
I heard the stat.
He scored twice, but
That's insane. So I guess it's Debo then, huh? That's pretty wild.
So yeah, Javonte has 1, Saquon's got 2 or 3, and Debo has 5.
It makes me wonder what the hell happened to Debo last year. Like I know he had all kinds of issues with the contract but he played 13 games and he basically did nothing. He was his wide receiver 35 on the year. Like it just feels so weird that he goes so one side or the other. Basically, it's just all over the place. It seems like if you're looking at the pattern here, definitely don't pick him next year in redraft and then pick him the year after, because every other year he seems to be really good. So it's interesting. But I do think it's a lot of the 49ers offense kind of just pick your poison each week. Who are you going to get? Is it going to be an Ayuk week? Is it going to be a Kittle week? Is it going to be Debo? Christian's always there, obviously, but it's interesting. Moving down to DJ Moore. He's been very hot as of late as well. Basically, as soon as Justin Fields came back, he's been back to his normal self. So he's 15.6, 12.4, 20.8 in the last 3 weeks. Really, really good. He's wide receiver 6 on the year, which took me by surprise. But then I forgot he had that monster 43-point game.
3 points, yeah.
Which that'll do it. Very
wide receiver 2 last week too.
That's incredible, and he's already matched his career high in touchdowns for a single season, and there's still 4 games left to play. So I think it's safe to say he's having a career year, and he's only 26.
Tough matchup this week.
Brutal matchup this week.
Cleveland is in Cleveland.
Good defense, man.
Shitty weather in Cleveland. I don't love it this week. He just popped up on the injury report today. A little worried about this one.
Yeah, he said he missed practice today with an ankle injury. Don't love that.
Yeah, you see that.
Yeah, but number 6 on the year. There's up to this point he's been great, but it is a tough sled. But he gets Arizona next week if they can get past this round, and then Atlanta the week after. Those are very, very good matchups. So
if I knew he wasn't going to stay in Carolina, I probably would have thought twice about trading him away.
Carolina is just such a dumpster fire.
I assumed he was just banished there forever, but
they let him go. They let him free.
I love
and then let's talk about the last guy here, Michael Pittman. Talked about him a little bit last week. Kind of just keeping the train rolling. He's been as solid as he could possibly be, basically, as a wide receiver 2, pretty much this whole year. 11 points last week, 17 the week before, and 11 before that.
Mhm.
So he gets a Pittsburgh team at home in the Dome. Pittsburgh's not super great against the pass. I mean, they've been solid, but definitely another matchup where you could easily see 12 points for Michael Pittman. He's just going to have to beat out the Gardner Minshew effect. Gardner seems to love him. He's been targeted insanity amounts of times, basically. 16 targets the week prior, and then 11, 13, 12, 13. So targets are not the issue.
Ironically, I like Josh Downs more this week.
Downs?
Talking about him.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is the worst team in the league against the slot.
Well, Downs seems like a go-off week for the Downs folks.
They gave up like 90 yards to Juju, so
that's bad.
That's really
real
bad. You guys got a knee that's ready to explode.
That guy's the definition of washed. All right, and then let's go over to the plague wide receiver room, which on paper looks beautiful. It seems like Justin Jefferson is going to play from what I'm seeing.
He said today he was going to play this week.
Obviously, for Dan, he needs that at this point. He needs Nick Mullins to throw it to him. And Nick Mullins, I feel like, would be a better fit probably than Josh Dobbs. So that could potentially be an upgrade.
Whoever's not throwing hospital balls is the better choice.
I feel like Nick Mullins could potentially do that. So we'll see. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
We're going to find out.
We are going to find out, but I don't think we have to talk too much about Justin Jefferson's overall talent. We know he's good.
No,
if he plays, he'll be good. DK Metcalf has been pretty damn good in the last few weeks here. Specifically, a couple weeks ago against Dallas, a great defense too in Dallas, dropping 32, and then 11 last week on a long touchdown. Got ejected though. That was a fun time at the end of that game. That game was pretty wild.
He's got a career in the WWE waiting for him.
I feel like him and George Pickens would be a hell of a tag team. You know, they're just literally botting everybody they see. But DK is just built different, man. That guy. I every time I look at this height weight, it's absurd. He's 6'4", 235, and he can move like that. It's true. He's got basically a tight end body, and he goes out there and runs like I think he ran the fastest miles per hour captured. I think it was that long touchdown that he scored earlier this year. Is 22 miles an hour at that.
Yeah, it was the Dallas touchdown. Yeah,
I mean, that's just insanity. That's just totally insane. The guy's really, really good. Gets a Philly defense this week. Do you like DK?
He should be fine. I think he'll probably have like a couple chunk plays, and he'll get enough targets where he'll be fine. I think JSN is the better receiver this week because the Eagles are so bad in the middle of the field on defense, and I think JSN is just going to eat. So I think he's going to be the guy this week. But I think DK will be fine. He gets volume. I think he gets the most volume on the team so far this season. So good matchup for him.
Yeah, it looks like he's averaging somewhere around 9 targets to game, 9 to 10. So he'll get his chances for sure, and he's always looked decent for a deep ball. I didn't see is Geno playing this week or is it Drew Lock? I'm sorry, I didn't really take a peek at
That's
that.
But good question.
Maybe I'll let you look at that, and then I'll go on to Davante Adams here. So Davante questionable again this week. He apparently had some sort of illness. Not really sure what that's all about, but he played 98% of the snaps last week. But it seems like if he can get over the illness, he'll probably end up playing. And he gets a Chargers team who, frankly, the Chargers, they look ridiculously bad. It's just absurd how bad they look.
If he plays, he's going to do something against the Chargers. They're terrible. Geno, according to Sleeper, not a lock to return in week 15.
Here we go. Not a lock. So either way, I mean, I feel like either one of those quarterbacks is going to get DK the touches. I don't think it's going to be a touch issue. It's just a matter of how efficient those touches are.
Yeah.
But for Davante, he's been getting his average fill of targets over the last 5 weeks. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue as long as he can get out on the field. All right. We've got a great tight end battle here. Taysom Hill versus Travis Kelce. Unbelievable that this is even a discussion, but it is. So I believe he didn't play last week. Did he play last week? I don't think he
Taysom
did.
Hill?
Yeah. Week 14 says he got nothing. I didn't really follow along, I'll be honest with you.
I guess not.
So maybe he
That would
played and just
explain
like
why.
he didn't have any snaps, so he must not
That
have
would
played
explain
last
why
week.
Kamara got so much red zone work.
It would certainly make sense. Yeah, I mean Taysom Hill, you're hoping for that suck out touchdown. It's pretty much what it's all about. I don't know. Do you think if I guess this and the next question is, does Waller play?
I mean, if Waller's playing, I think I would probably play Waller. He traded for him. It's not
I
like he's
mean, oh,
waiting to
he's on his
use him.
IR right now.
Yeah, it's not like he's
Um,
waiting to use him next year. So
yeah, I mean it's this is the time I guess. And it seems like Tibbs believes he's going to play. So yeah, you'd imagine Taysom Hill gets benched probably then for Waller. Travis Kelce on the other side has been
it's pretty good.
pretty damn rock solid, and he's once again the number one tight end. So there's death taxes in Travis Kelce being the best tight end in the league.
He's gonna get doubled, and he probably. That's a bad matchup against New England. Kyle Duggar is like one of the best safeties in the NFL against tight ends.
And Bill
So
loves taking away the number one option, and there are no other options there really
there's
at
no
all.
other options. That's the thing. So
Just receivers, basically.
that's what I'm saying. Like it's gonna have to be like schemed up running back, like screens, tight
It's gonna
end
be a big Jerick
screens.
McKinnon week. You never know. You never know. It's crazy. Even if Dan can get through this first round, get Las Vegas next week, which is a nice matchup, and then Cincinnati if he
Travis
gets that
Kelce
far.
loves playing against the Raiders.
Oh, he sure does. He really does. Pretty obvious who's the better tight end there. Let's go to the flex plays. Tibbs's flex looks significantly stronger here. You got
Yes.
Brees Hall, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, three very, very good running backs against Alexander Mattison, who is, frankly, I believe him to be the Mike Davis of this year. I thought that before the season.
Yep.
It turned out to be true.
He was on my don't draft list.
I had him off my board entirely at price. I mean, if he was in the 14th round of redraft, maybe I'd consider it, but he was going way too high for me. I didn't make the Mike Davis mistake twice. And then AJ Dillon actually looked pretty damn good last week. He had some nice plays, a couple of big tear off plays, and was pretty consistent. But he's pretty much a lock. What seems for like 7 to 8 points. So, as a flex player, could be a lot worse.
We'll see. I can't think of a worse running defense matchup than the Bucks for AJ Dillon, a big guy that wants to drive the middle.
Yeah, we do pretty well against the middle. I mean, just looking at his stats, though, he has been pretty much 6, 7, 8 points over the last 5 to 10, 6 weeks basically. So, I mean, he's going to get the volume. I mean, he's been getting consistently 20 touches, so it's just a matter of if he can do anything with that. And his yards per carry has been terrible this year too. He's 3.5. So I don't know if it's even going to matter too much if he's efficient or not. Just give him the touches, and I think it looks like he missed practice today too. That's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of questionables down here. Taysom Hill, Brees Hall, Madison, Dillon, Jacobs. A lot of questionables.
Yeah, Connor seems to be okay. Hall was limited, but he played.
Jacobs is very questionable. He might not play. He's got
a quad injury too. That's a rough one. How is Josh Jacobs only 25, by the way?
Yeah, he came into the league so young.
Yeah, he was an 18. It feels like an 18-year-old basically. He's been in the league almost. This is his 6th season, and he's 25.
He came out as like a red shirt, like sophomore or something.
Yeah, he was a young. I think he was a 20-year-old rookie, which is pretty wild. Mike Evans was also a 20. I think Mike Evans was drafted just after his 19th birthday, which is unbelievable. And anywho, yeah, Jacobs, it looks pretty questionable at this point. Might not end up getting the start, but Tibbs also has quite a few bench guys that he could throw in there. At this point, he's got Lockett, Waddle, Bateman, and London. London. I feel like London probably should start, but we'll see. Anywho, on the other side of things, Isaiah Likely in the flex, not ideal.
Great.
But he did pretty good last week. He had 83 yards and a touchdown. Played 79% of the snaps. So if he keeps that up, that could actually work out pretty well. I'm just looking down at Dan's bench players. There's just not a lot of other options at this point. Keenan Allen is not playing this week. That stinks.
Not ironically, I think he could definitely look at Gibson as a starter this week. Brian Robinson still hurt, I think.
Yeah, he had an uptick in touches last week. He was 56%, which was his highest since week 3. So if
Yeah,
Robinson is hurt, he's definitely going to get more touches. That's for sure.
yeah. Robinson still not practicing. The most Andy Reid thing in the world would be to get Kadarius Toney in the end zone this week.
It really would.
He loves doing that. So not a joke.
Dude, how bad is Kadarius Toney?
He's awful. He's just
this year he's been nothing but a liability. Like that week 1 game against Detroit, just absolute stone hands, blows the whole game for him. And then pretty much blows this entire game for him last week. Every time he's on the field, he does something bad. I've never seen anybody like it.
If they had, I don't know, not even league average, but like close to league average in replacement of MVS and Kadarius Toney, they would have 10 wins.
And I just love it. Like, also, I saw MVS's contract situation. It is terrible. Like, they paid him so much money for really no reason. He's like you said, if anybody league average comes in, they're better than him. Like right now, like there's not even a debate. He's terrible. They're both terrible. I mean, you feel like they got to be the front runner for a guy like T. Higgins in the offseason if they can afford him, but it's just a matter of.
I don't see how they can afford him.
I mean, it would be great if they had a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that was another guy that was in discussion over the offseason. Like just anybody as that, Dwayne Bowie kind of target. Like they don't really have that. Anywho, it would be a very Andy Reid thing if that ends up happening. All right, so give me your prediction. Who wins this one?
Not reluctantly. I think you got to go with Tibbs on this one. Like he's got so many more options.
The injuries are just mounting up for Dan here. No Keenan Allen stinks. It could just be a Josh Allen savior game where he just has to drop 50 and maybe that's how he gets the win. But I feel like he's really going to have to overcome these kind of intermediate to low flex plays and then frankly not very good running backs right now. Tibbs he has more talent right now out there as a roster, I would think too. But you never know. Dan could always go off, so there's always the chance. And Jerick McKinnon is that guy in the playoff time, so maybe it's Jerick McKinnon 27-pointer. All right, let's go to the other game, which is an exciting one here between the Armadillos and the Battle Axes. I got absolutely destroyed last week. I think he almost lapped me, no, he did lap me. I had like 80 points and he had like 160. So
I shamed you because of it.
And I frankly, my team deserved it. They did not play well last week. They really didn't. It's funny. I'm pretty much trotting out the exact same team against his exact same team. I don't think there's really a whole lot of changes. I have a couple of different flex plays this week. Right now, I have Quentin Johnson in there. I hate it. It is bold. I hate it. I don't think I really have a better option. I mean, like Gus Edwards has to get like that suck out touchdown. Jameson Williams touches the ball 1 time a week.
Nico Collins playing?
That's the big question because if he would not be in the starting roster if that's the case. Nico, he missed today's practice with a calf. He was running on the sidelines though, so it gives me a reason to believe there's a chance. But it sounds like we might get a Davis Mills game. Don't love that. So there's a lot of things going against Nico Collins right now, which scare me. But I think even like a hobbled Nico Collins is better than Quentin Johnson right now. So if he gets out there and plays, he's probably in my starting roster as well. It's kind of a weird week in my flex role. And Addison, I'm not loving a whole lot right now either without Kirk around. He's been pretty mid pretty much for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, third option on a team playing their third, fourth quarterback this year.
I think it's their third or fourth, yeah. At least third, but maybe fourth. Wandale kind of picked it up last week with the great Tommy DeVito, and he looks good every time he gets the ball. So I'm just going to leave him in there and pray. definitely a weird week here. Some of the guys that I was hoping to rely on and really haven't been doing a whole lot recently, specifically Addison. He was pretty great for me at the beginning of the year and got me. I think he was a big part of that, big winning streak at the beginning of the year. He's really slowed
Mhm.
down. I feel like the X factor in my team here is Achane. You got to think that if he gets the touches, I mean, every time he touches the ball, it feels like 6 to 7 yards at least. So if he can get the amount of touches that he can help me get into that stratosphere of 20, 30 points like he does or like he did earlier in the year, that could really help me get over the top. But Scavelli's team is pretty stout, man. Um,
I mean, if the Dolphins wanted to rest Tyreek and Mostert this week,
it
I
should be
think
an
that's a
A-Chain
great.
blow-up game.
I think it's a great idea. They should definitely do that.
I mean, you
Let's
would love
not.
that.
Let's bring them back next week.
But realistically, like it is a Jets game. There could be potential for maybe a little bit less run of those players, just based on like what you're saying.
Are you
Obviously, I know
trying to
Tyreek
say
wants
that
that.
Zach Wilson isn't going to throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns again?
What I'm saying to you is, will Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson both be AFC and NFC Player of the Weeks again? Can you
That's like
believe that happened?
that's some like alternate timeline shit. I can't.
That is the most absurd thing that I saw this entire year. Is how
Wild.
because Tommy DeVito, his first couple starts looked horrific, like one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. And then things have just kind of started clicking over the last couple of weeks. But I think there's that Dallas game I watched. That it just looked like a high schooler playing quarterback. It was so bad. But he's
The
really kind of turned it around here.
the Giants definitely they definitely haven't had a good season, and
No.
but Brian Dable has won a game with 3 different starting quarterbacks this year, and I find that kind of impressive.
Yeah, I mean I remember hearing talks like, "Oh, does Dable stick around?" It's like, dude, Dable's a good coach.
He's
You
a good
you
coach.
don't get rid of that guy. Like he's not the problem.
I don't know what his level of involvement was about giving Daniel Jones that contract.
See that now that's a whole different thing.
That's questionable. That was the biggest
Very
layup
questionable.
of give that guy the franchise tag in my life that I've ever seen, and they botched it.
Yeah, like why commit 3 years? Like there's no reason. But I mean, well they franchised Barkley though, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, like so you choose the running back that's probably gonna end up leaving anyway. That didn't really do a whole. I don't know. The whole situation is kind of jacked up, but they're probably gonna end up losing Barkley, and then now you're stuck with Danny Dimes for another
Maybe.
2 years. I feel like he's probably gone, but it just depends on money and cap situations and whatnot. So, um, anyway, for that's some Barkley talk. Let's talk about Henry against Houston. Henry has been very, very good in the last 3 weeks. 19, 25, and 17.
It's
RB4
getting
for the year. He's Derrick Henry.
it's getting cold out. It's Derrick Henry season.
About that time for Derrick Henry to ruin my day.
He's got he's got Houston 2 out of the next 3 weeks.
Oh God help us!
But
And
no.
it's a rough one. And
He
he's at
hates
home
Houston.
in a chilly weather game, if you will. Justin Fields against Cleveland. We talked about that a little bit earlier with DJ Moore. Feels like a tough matchup for the guy.
It's not
He's
good.
coming off a really bad game. Um, it's a weird one.
Yeah, that's a no from me, dog. He's got
I didn't have a bad
he's
game
got
last week. He was fine.
see, I would definitely be considering starting Russell Wilson at Detroit if I were him. But
That is an interesting call. I haven't really looked at Wilson's numbers recently.
Wilson's been consistent all year.
Yeah, man, he's pretty much just rock solid at like 19 points a game. I mean, that's safe. It's safer than a potential complete dud from
Which is
Fields. But
very in Cleveland is very possible.
I mean, Fields' rushing seems to be keeping him afloat at least so far this year. But he did
Mhm.
drop a 10-pointer against Minnesota. Not great. I mean, you could easily get a 10-pointer out of Fields. It's not out of the
Yeah.
question.
I mean, he's basically trying out for other teams at this point, like wherever he
It
ends up
feels
getting
like
traded to. Because I can't imagine they're not going to take a quarterback at 1.
That's an interesting debate. I mean, if they end up with one and Williams is sitting there, you got to try to re-roll the dice, I think. But you know,
My expectation was funny enough. I think I posted it in our chat like a while back. I was like, he's like 50% like on the like if Fields is like the 0 and Mahomes is the 100, I think Caleb Williams is going to be like at the 50 between those two
Yeah,
for me.
it seems about right. He
Which
to
is
me
funny because
he's
he's
like
not
in
going
that.
to.
I got him in that like Kyler range, where it's like kind of he's a good passer, he's a good runner, but I'm not sure if he'll ever get to that next like stratosphere of like elite. But he should be, especially for fantasy, should be just fine based on his rushing ability. But he's also a good passer. It's just been such a weird year at USC. I've been trying to follow along as much as I can, but they that defense is so bad, and every game he's playing from behind. Um,
And
which
that wasn't even the worst part of their team this year. They
no,
were ranked last in special teams, and they didn't even have a special teams coach this year.
which I've never heard of that ever.
It's amazing.
How do you not have a special teams coach, especially with USC's budget? Just find a way.
Lincoln Riley's taking all the money. He doesn't care.
I mean, just find a way. I mean,
My
Jesus,
job is
find some
offense here.
graduate assistant to do it. Do something. Like, it's embarrassing. But he's had to battle through a lot of shit this year, so I'm trying to not let that change
Yeah,
my
he's
evaluation.
trying to score 9 points on every throw, basically
Yeah,
this year. It's tough. It's a tough way to live.
yeah, it's not ideal, but if he goes to the Bears, it will be a decent offensive situation for him when he gets there. I mean, he's gonna have some guys to throw to. He's gonna have more. He'll have Cole Kmet, and hopefully they pick up some extra talent as well. I know they're gonna have a ton of cap space, so they'll be able to find some more guys.
You think it'll be a new coaching staff there next year?
Man, that's a tough one. I think if Harbaugh was available, you might see them go that route, but it sounds like he's not. So, I mean, I
'Cause
don't know
they've
if they
got
would.
they had that mishap with their defensive coordinator at the beginning of the year, which I think
Yeah,
nobody has talked about since it happened, which is weird because it was
it's
like a
literally just fallen off the radar. Yeah.
and then since like week 3 or 4, they're like top 5 in a lot of defensive categories,
And
and he's a
that's what
defensive head
Eberflus is good
coach.
at. Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I guess it just depends on like how you view it. It's like, are we making progress this year because they have more wins this year already, right, than they did last year?
Yeah, I think what are they? 4 or 5 wins now?
They're at 5-8.
Yeah, I
They're
mean
still
that's
technically alive in the playoff race.
yeah, I mean they're
And
not completely out of it, and they're not playing like terrible football right now. Yeah, I think it really depends on how these last like 3 or 4 games go, and if they completely blow it and just go 0-4, then maybe they just blow the whole
yeah,
thing up, and we'll
all,
see.
all
But
that to say is like Caleb Williams going to a team with a defensive-minded head coach is not what I would want to see.
it's really not, and it's funny because it's like kind of the same situation as we saw with Fields. Like, oh, can we get a real offensive coordinator here, like that knows what they're doing? Um, and he's never really had that, and then it looks like we're not going to get that either potentially with Caleb Williams. So I don't know. It's going to be a weird one. All right, moving down to the wide receiver group here, you got Diggs, Thielen, and Beckham. Odell had a little bit of a blow up week last week. He's been pretty efficient on his limited targets. Um, I've noticed that over the last like 4 or 5 weeks, he's been pretty damn solid. He's pretty much 10 points a game. Um, we'll see if he keeps it up against Jacksonville. I'm looking mostly at Thielen here. He's been much slower after a really hard. I mean, he's just stuck. He's just stuck.
The man is old. All right,
He is old, and they're targeting him. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it was just absurd the amount of targets he was getting, like 13, 14, 13, 13, 11, 10. It's been slowing down quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, specifically the last 2 weeks, they're really putting more of an emphasis on driving the ball down the field. I think Bryce Young's like average depth of target has been quite a bit further down the field
I mean,
since.
that's a good thing. They really need to
Yeah,
just do something. Like, I saw somebody on Twitter post that the Panthers should just bench Bryce Young. And I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, because they're like, oh, this is such a shitty situation. Just bench him and, just let him re-roll the dice next week or next year. And I was like, no, you got to get this guy more touches. Like, that's what he needs right now. Like, he
they need,
needs more reps.
they need to do a full-on just fire sale.
Yeah,
Specifically, they really screwed up when they didn't trade Burns. I don't know why they didn't trade him.
I mean, if they already got rid of Moore, why not Burns? Like,
They had, I'm pretty sure they had an offer on the table for like a first rounder plus for Burns.
yeah, they did. I remember, and they came out and said, or somebody came out and said that they had a huge offer out for him.
Your
And
team
Burns is really
needs-
good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but I'm in the camp of like when you have a rookie quarterback, you say fuck that defense, and you get the rookie quarterback everything he needs to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, if they were able to get a first round pick, especially if it was this year, it's such a deep receiver class. You know, instead of taking a guy like fucking Jonathan Mingo, you could get somebody really good like a Malik Neighbors or maybe somebody in that range, or maybe even Marvin Harrison if you still had your damn pick.
You've got players on that defense that were very tradable. You've got Burns, Jeremy Chin was tradable, J.C. Horn possibly tradable. Like they had pieces they could have moved and they could have gotten draft capital and really like work towards building the offense for next year. And now they're just stuck at pick 33. Is their first draft?
That's so bad. But what's more interesting is just like the pieces that they decided to surround Young with have all flopped except for Thielen. I mean, DJ Chark stinks. Miles Sanders definitely stinks. They have I think Hayden Hurst, he was not good. Tommy Tremble stinks. They just don't have good players on offense. Like it's just that simple.
How many offenses in the NFL could you drop Bryce Young into and you think he would look like a top 15 quarterback in?
It's hard to say because, Frank, I'll be honest with you, like as bad as Carolina's been and so bad at protecting him as they've been, he still hasn't looked at all good. Like I haven't been, there's just nothing that I'm watching that I'm like, wow, that's impressive. There just isn't anything like that. So like it's hard for me to say that, oh yeah, if you dropped him in, I don't know, Green Bay's offense, like is he going to be good? I don't even know.
You know the Russell Wilson clip where he's like, live.
Yeah, exactly.
He should just be limited.
Just only limited.
It's so mean, but it's so true.
Handicapped. It's so bad. I mean, it's like if you drop Bryce Young into Green Bay's offense, what happens? Because they're pretty mid overall.
Better than he is now, for sure.
I would agree. But is he top 15, 16?
I don't think he's better than Jordan Love.
No, I think that's what you hope he should turn into.
Right.
Which is sad. They could have CJ Stroud.
He literally can't throw to a third of the field.
Not right now. We don't see it.
He'll never be able to throw to a third. He can't. Like he has to
physically can't.
He has to take like a 10-step drop to be able to throw to the middle of the field.
It's bad. It's not a good situation. When you see it that they passed on Stroud, it really hurts.
I think his ceiling is like
Jordan
maybe
Love.
Like I was thinking like Russ, but not like any of Russ's top 3 seasons. Maybe like his 4th best season.
But he doesn't even like move like him. He's only got 200 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's
like Russ moves around. God, he's only got 9 touchdowns and 9 picks. Oh my God, it's bad.
It's brutal, man.
He barely has 2,000 yards. I mean, he hasn't thrown for 200 yards since week 8. It's so bad. I feel bad for the guy, and I feel bad for him too because you listen to him in these post-game press conferences, and he's just beat up. The guy's just getting the shit kicked out of him, and there's just no end in sight, which sucks even worse. He's fumbled every game for the last 4 games. It's tough out here for the kid.
Yeah, he could really use like a dynamic running back like a McCaffrey and like a good yards after the catch wide receiver like DJ Moore.
So you're saying the 4-year, $26 million contract they gave to Miles Sanders isn't what they were hoping for?
That was DOA.
That was bad. I mean, I know they had a shit ton of cap space, but Jesus, what a terrible spot.
They could have asked literally any Eagles fan. They would have done the same thing.
It makes Chuba Hubbard look like the next coming. It's terrible. It's so bad. Anywho, moving along. That was a huge derailment off of a Thielen post, but totally worth it.
We're going to be turning into the Dynasty League draft podcast here in a couple
weeks. It always is. We got to get it in while we can. All right, so we got Turd Ferguson versus George Kittle. Pretty good tight end matchup this week. Turd has been rock solid over the last I don't know. It feels like the entire season he's been pretty solid.
Nice solid turd.
He is a good quality turd. He's 570 yards, 5 touchdowns. That is a good turd.
You should get really meta and just nickname him Mr. Hanky on your team.
I think he's becoming
it's
close to
the
that.
season, Eric. It's Christmas time.
It is Christmas. It is Christmas. That sounds like a meme opportunity. I might have to take you up on that.
Vince is probably already working on the meme right now.
No, it's such a good one. And Kittle is doing Kittle things pretty much exactly what he's done his entire career, just up and down every other week. But when he goes off, and you don't want to play him when he goes off. So I'm expecting another pretty good game for him.
Give me Ferguson this week. Give me Fergie.
Interesting. All right, Ferguson against Buffalo, Kittle against Arizona, in the dome especially.
Arizona loves to give up rushing yards. I think George Kittle's just gonna have a blast blocking the shit out of everybody this week.
He's just gonna be that guy on the ground game, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then for the flex players, we got Aaron Jones. I didn't know he was playing this week.
Yeah, looking at that.
Looks like he's limited.
Limited.
Mr. Limited, Bryce Young. Now there's a nickname that should change. Mr. Limited should be in the sleeper for whoever. I think it's Vince that owns him. I feel like you got to put Mr. Limited in there. Yeah, I mean, if he plays, kind of a scary player to go against, but like you said, he is going against Tampa. Pretty good against the run, so that might hamper things a little bit. Evan Ingram, of course, goes off when he plays me, basically.
He went all the way off.
Was great. He didn't score a touchdown until week 12 or 13, and now he has 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, so that's just class. But he's been very, very good in the last couple of weeks. He's getting peppered with targets.
Playing Baltimore, Kyle Hamilton is not expected to play.
Oh, that's a bad one.
So we'll see how that one goes.
It's a tough loss. Kyle Hamilton's really good.
He's so good.
But here's the thing. The Ravens do this every damn year with the defensive players. They just find guys that fall. They always end up playing good, and everybody's like, why didn't we take them? And
was it Stone's Geno Stone? Geno Stone. That's who it is.
Geno Stone. There's another guy named Stone Smart.
So that's where I was going. He's a tight end, isn't he?
He is. Like a 3rd or 4th string tight end. But anywho, that's a nice deep cut for those that are. Who we got? We got 2 guys listening. Okay, we got 2 people listening right now. So if you know who Stone Smart is, type a W in the chat or something. I don't know.
W's in the chat.
W's in the chat. This is not a Twitch stream. Then we got Tony Pollard against Buffalo. Tony, he's been pretty good, but it's a tough matchup.
He's trending in the right direction after the beginning of the year. He's been so average.
I mean, he's the number 15 running back this year. He's averaging 4.06 yards per carry. He's not really doing a ton in the receiving game, maybe as much as people expected. Frankly, Rico Dowdle looks good every time he gets the ball.
He really does. That's such a weird, hey, it's my 4th year in the NFL and I haven't done anything. Time to.
Yeah, I mean, every time he touches the ball, it just seems like an aggressive run. He's averaging 4.0 yards a carry too.
It's just something about being that second running back in the Cowboys system. You just
they've always had a good second running back every year, even back to the Jason Garrett days. You might get a sneak in game from Joseph Randle. There's always a random good RB2 game. So yeah, I feel like Tony, probably hasn't lived up to the overall hype this year, but he's been solid. I mean, you can't be too upset with the RB15 season.
Yeah, no, not at all. That's a great thing to have in your flex.
And then Scavelli finds the best kicker in the NFL as of right now.
This is an elite kicker matchup. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, it is a great kicker matchup. Jake Elliott been a little slower in the last 3 or 4 games. He did have a good game last week.
Playing from behind, going for it on 4th downs, not great for your kicking situation.
It definitely is not. But I definitely think this is one of the better kicker matchups we've seen recently. Defense-wise, I'm deciding between Kansas City against New England in a shit weather game, or Cleveland against that Chicago game that we were talking about earlier. They're both not good offenses that they're going against, so it could just be a coin flipper. But right now I'm siding with the Chiefs playing a terrible offense, so it feels right. And then you got
Chiefs
sorry.
defensive points since week 11, 8, 2, 2, and 6. Just so
It's
you
not
know.
ideal. It's
Just so
not
you know.
ideal. And frankly, the 2-pointer against Las Vegas is embarrassing. Like
That was tough.
that's just how do you not get more than 2 points against that team? And they only let up 17 points. You just didn't do anything. Like
Yeah.
literally no sacks, no picks, no
They-
fumbles, no nothing. It's just boring.
yeah,
So
their
I don't
pressure
know.
rate the last month has been non-existent.
Yeah, maybe that's the game that Bailey Zappi cooks. You never know. All right,
He
so that
cooked.
just,
He
he loves.
won. He gave Bill Belichick an awkward handshake after the game. The guy was on it.
That's all he needed, I guess. All right, so who do you got here between the Armadillos and the Battle Axes?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the battle axes. Sorry, buddy.
No, I mean if you watch last week's matchup, it's not too hard of a decision, I don't think.
It's a tough look.
It's but here we are. We're back in the playoffs. We rebuilt last year. We're here in the playoffs. This is this is I believe year 11, so we've made it to the playoffs 10 out of 11 years now. The fans are happy. We got good draft picks from other teams. Everybody's happy. So I think everybody is not expecting anything here, but it'd be a nice to have, not a need to have. But we'll see what happens. But taking down the defending champions would be quite a fun storyline for the Armadillo fan base. So we'll see what we can do. We're gonna need some magic though, that's for sure. Um, all right, so that wraps up the two games. Obviously, you two are on bye between you and James. Um, trying to think. Oh, we could talk a little bit quickly about the draft order. What's
Yep.
been decided at least now. So you have the Baton Rouge Bombers scraping their way into the first seed in an incredible Monday night game where I think it was only a 1 point difference decided it. So that was pretty amazing. Um, Justin in the driver's seat now for Marvin Harrison Jr. Seems like the lock pick as of right now. And then number 2, you have the Kentucky Elk. Just could not find a way to lose enough games to get themselves that first pick. They're driving the number 2 seat right now, and then the Muskrats finish 8th, and the Lionheads finish 7th, and I have both of those picks, so I'll pick 3 and 4. If somehow Dan loses and I win, I believe that would put me in the 5th pick as well. So I'd have 3, 4, and 5, which would be kind of cool. So we'll have to see what ends up happening there, but we got plenty.
And the 10th pick too.
And potentially the 10th pick. Yeah, we can't forget about your pick. You never know. Well, at least what we do know is it won't be number 5 or 6. So that's not possible. So we can bank on 7 through 10.
I can say Justin, when he gets to look at Jamar Chase and Marvin Harrison Jr. back to back on his lineups next year, it's gonna feel nice.
Yeah, he's not gonna be too upset. I don't think with that.
That's gonna look nice.
But you know what, Sean? Every year we do this with the Bombers. It always looks nice. It always looks nice. And what happens? Nothing happens. It always looks nice. But us Bombers fans, we're tried and true, and we will stay there till the end. And I think we'll have plenty more draft discussion, of course. But Marvin Harrison definitely seems like that guy.
It's a good receiver class.
He's a very good receiver class.
A lot of size.
Terrible running back class.
Terrible.
Might be one of the worst.
And the complete opposite of last year was all tiny receivers, and this year is just all big dudes.
The big old boys, which fits my prototype. So it's a great year for me to have 4 firsts. So your boy's hyped.
You're gonna enjoy watching the tape this year.
Yeah, the tape is fun. All right, let's wrap this up here. This was episode 54. We will probably be coming back to you again next week. That's my plan, at least. I want to do one for every week of the playoffs. So we'll hopefully come back to you guys next week, and we'll talk about who's going to go up and take on the Long Gamers and the Lambs. And once again, we will see you guys next time.